Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Well, the information I have to share with you today is nothing short of shocking, and I really don't know how to put it in words in a way which is not going to come off as wildly histrionic. And the uncanny nature in which history is repeating right now is absolutely terrifying to anybody who has aggregated all the data in the way that I have. I'm going to try to disseminate that to you in a way which makes sense. Now get a load of this. This is a fire at the Russian Ministry of Defense in Moscow as of 1 hour ago, but that isn't even news, okay? We're not even gonna talk about that because that's just some sludge content for you guys who have a hard time paying attention to things and you need constant stimulation. But something is rotten in Denmark right now, okay? There was a cross-border incursion into Russia a few days ago, and the way that the media is talking about this is incredibly disconcerting for me. We're going to talk all about that, who's involved in it, but effectively it boils down to this. Get a load of this. Are you sitting down? Because this is exactly what has happened. I run the risk of nuking my channel in providing commentary like this. I want you guys to know that, but I do this because I wear my heart on my sleeve and I'm not a good bullshitter. So it is what it is. Let the chips fall where they may. I hope I'm still within the Overton window on this one. NATO is invading Russia under the guise of partisans. You have self-professed neo-Nazis in MRAPs, American vehicles, invading Russia, okay? I mean, wait a minute. What did he just say? German tanks, hundreds of German tanks, F-16s, are about to go to war with the Russians. Do you understand what I just said? The Ukrainian intelligence chief said today that the goal is to assassinate Vladimir Putin. The commander of the Ukrainian military is still mysteriously absent. And there was more information leaked today that suggests that he indeed was the victim of a missile strike by the Russians. We have an unusual amount of activity in the Black Sea, including NATO fighter jets. Okay, I personally haven't seen this happen before, where you had military planes being escorted by manned fighter jets in the Black Sea. Apparently it happens once in a while, but there's a lot of recon activity right now in the Black Sea. You have things going on in Crimea right now. And why this is all important for people who are like worlds apart and maybe dying of starvation in other countries who couldn't be bothered with what's going on in Ukraine, because they're kind of hogging all the global attention for the past, what is it now, year and a half? It's the nuclear war thing, okay? And it's getting closer. And I regret to inform you that it doesn't appear as though there's going to be a calm, cool, and collected voice in the room in the back channels to diffuse this situation, because this shit is getting out of control. We have Germany planning or hinting that they're going to be sending 500-mile range missiles to Ukraine. You have Poland saying that they're going to, or that they need to prepare to invade Belarus under the guise, of course, of partisans. This is going to be the new buzzword, okay? When we're trying to topple governments and foment coups, it's all going to be done by partisans now. And it creates a gray area, right, where you can't really respond. If you bring the fight within a country's own borders, how do you use nukes? So, but anyways, we got China simulating the sinking of U.S. aircraft carriers, apparently with great success. 90% in this simulation, where the Chinese claim that they actually self-restricted in many ways and allowed the Americans to exhaust their entire anti-missile arsenal and still had a 90% kill rate. And we got this U.S. debt to GDP nightmare scenario In addition to the whole China hacking the NATO critical infrastructure thing, which we've talked about probably for years, that they've had this dormant malware existing on critical infrastructural computers across NATO countries, just waiting to push the button when the time comes. Maybe that's why the senators were issued phones. But you know what? Before we get into this, I just want to give you something to think about. You know, in the movies, they say that everything you see on the screen, because the director only has your attention for 90 minutes, that everything they put on screen has to have some greater meaning in the grand tapestry of that film. And I believe that the same thing is true with mainstream media. Now, I know that sounds conspiratorial to say that, but I do believe every little hint that gets dropped is a piece of the puzzle. Whether it's the thousands of tons of explosives that went missing, or the senators issued satellite phones, or the critical infrastructure, security concerns that are happening right now in response to China and the Chinese doing simulations and all this stuff that's going on in between Ukraine and Russia. Everything, it may not matter for a few months, but it's going to matter at some point, okay? Now, this is a fire that was burning at the Russian Defense Ministry. They say that somebody left a tea kettle on or something. I don't know. Anyways, that's not what we're concerned about today. But guys, this is absolutely insane to me. I mean, I cannot get over how the West is spinning this. Look at this. This guy right here, Russian neo-Nazi. This is from the Telegraph. And I got to give Vice some credit, because they're actually reporting on this for once. I think they're trying to redeem themselves. Didn't their stock crash or something? Anyways, anti-Putin militias celebrate attacks on Russia's are filled with neo-Nazis, okay? So they finally reported on that, but look at how CNN framed it. This is how CNN frames it. Anti-Putin Russians say their goal is complete liberation of Russia. And there's people cheering this on. This is exactly what Vladimir Putin is talking about, is that the West completely ignores this. This guy is a noted neo-Nazi hooligan. That's what they call them in Britain, I guess. Hooligans. I think, who was a comedian who had a joke about that? Bill Hicks? Anyways, Denis Nikitin and 40 others of the Russian Volunteer Corps snuck across into Russia to take photos of themselves. So this is a photo op. Some people think it's just a way to take attention away what's going on in Bakhmut. Depending on which propagandist you listen to, either Russia has completely crushed them already, or there's still fighting going on and they've went all the way up to the place where they store nuclear weapons. We debunked that long ago. There's people saying that they captured these nuclear weapons. That's complete garbage. That's nonsense, okay? But anyways, watch our video from a couple days ago if you want more information about that. But check this out right here. Look at this. This is a Russian general. This is not Photoshop. This is from a video. He's got a Soviet Union patch, okay? And he is fighting Nazis in Russia where they fought in World War II. You could not make this up. And the Leopard tanks are rolling in and they're about to storm the line. Can you believe this? This is the video. I mean, well, this is a video of the guy. We'll show you that in a second here. Let me see if I can find this. This is the actual video of the Russian general, because you know the Russian generals, they like to actually lead from the front, which is why so many of them die. This guy is commanding troops. I'm guessing this had a bit of a photo op vibe to it, and he's distinctly wearing that Soviet patch so the camera can get it. But you see where this is going. I mean, history is repeating right before our eyes, only now we all have nuclear weapons. And there's a lot of other bad shit that's going on that's going to make the situation much, much worse. So you have, look at the contrast. Look at that. This is insane. You cannot, there's nobody really putting all the pieces together in this way, or it's been so minimized in the media that, oh, that's just Putin's delusions and, this is just a handful of misfits. And be that as it may, this still looks really bad. And these guys almost, I get the vibe of provocateur, with these guys, because if you want to really poke at the Russians, put a couple of knuckleheads like this in there and see what happens. See what the response is going to be. It's not going to be good. Especially when you got these guys in American vehicles. I mean, this is the insane thing. How we're not using our fallout shelters yet, if you have one, is besides. I have no idea. I mean, I would have thought when they attacked Engels Air Base with the nuclear bombers that was it, that we were DEFCON 2. The fact that so many red lines have been crossed, and now you have the Ukrainian intelligence saying that we're getting closer to Putin and that the end goal is to assassinate him. It's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, I can't believe it. You had the Russian spy boss today tell NATO to go to hell. I don't think he used those words exactly, but he said something about, you know, you're going to meet the devil at some point and you're going to have to repent for whatever. But we're getting really scary close. Very, very scary close. There's a lot of misdirection going on with the Wagner group. So the Wagner chief, Prigozhin, if people haven't gathered it yet, they're getting this guy to do these public appearances and say all these crazy things, almost, I think, as misdirection. Because look at what's happened. Remember when they were talking about we're running out of ammunition, Bakhmut's about to fall. Then they said, okay, we're going to have to retreat from Bakhmut. And you guys think I'm histrionic. That guy is, you know, he's got histrionic personality disorder if what he presents as isn't just some persona that he's crafted to misdirect. I think what Prigozhin is saying today is that the plan to demilitarize Ukraine has failed and that their military is stronger than ever before. Okay? And if you talk to anybody in the Russian military analyst space, they will say that this is, this is a crock of you know what. Because, of course, the Ukrainian military has been beyond decimated. That's not even the word. That means reduced by a factor of 10%, which historically is enough to topple an army. But that's assuming that you don't have hundreds of billions of dollars flowing in weapons and equipment. Are they the most capable army in Europe? Absolutely. They're the most experienced. If you believe the numbers, however, coming from Russian military analysts, then no, the armies is nearly destroyed. Especially if you believe what people like Colonel Douglas Macgregor has to say about, the state of the attritional rate of the Ukrainian military and how for every dead Russian, there's 7 dead Ukrainians and yada, yada, yada. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just trying to put everything out there so people can come to their own conclusions. I don't even really think that's true. I think that's an exaggeration to be in fact. Typically, it would be the other way around, that the invading force would lose 3 times the amount of guys as the defending force, okay? Prigozhin is putting on this show to almost make his own achievements look a lot better, because if you say that Ukraine is the most powerful military in Europe and that they're stronger than they were before, well, that might have the effect of getting more funding for you. It might have the effect of people saying, well, you lost 20,000 soldiers in Bakhmut. We are now in debt to you. And that your organization obviously clearly knows what it's doing if it's able to defeat one of the best militaries in the world, the best military in the world. I think he even talked about how it was better than the U.S. military because of, I don't know if he was talking about special ops, probably not, but, just in general, the U.S. military. But he came out today and he said, we lost 20,000 guys in Bakhmut. Now, for the longest time, Ukraine has been saying there was 100,000 dead in Bakhmut, which would imply that 300,000 casualties, because typically you got to multiply the rate of deaths by 2 or 3 times to get the overall casualties, the injuries included, right? So everybody knew that was kind of a wild exaggeration. But he comes out today and he says 20,000. That's a big number of deaths. So that means that you're talking about 100,000 casualties. So is he just doing more misdirection? I have to say I kind of think so, because I cannot see how this guy is still around or how Putin gives him license to say all these things if not just to confuse and convolute the battlefield a little bit more to make people not know what the hell is going on. Apparently, there's a big counteroffensive in the works that's going to include F-16s. It's going to include, look at all this equipment that's being sent. I mean, you have every single NATO country right now just pushing as many weapons as they can into Ukraine. If you think you've seen a war yet, you haven't seen anything yet. When this thing actually kicks off, I mean, I think people are going to get scared. I think it's usually the panic that crashes the markets. It's never the, even in the Great Depression of 1929 that was preceded by the 29 crash, it was more the shock, the spook. It was like the herd, you know, gets spooked. And I think that's what's going to happen here, because the fighting intensity is going to be so intense over and beyond what it is now, as they're putting all of these weapons, and as you have neo-Nazis crossing in to the Russian Federation territory. And as you guys have heard me say this on countless occasions, that all is fair in war, okay? That if you invade a country, then you have to be ready to deal with that country firing back at you. So I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate reasons for Ukraine to do that, and that every single one of those guys who is currently Azov representative are representative of the Ukrainian army as a whole. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, I mean, look at Zelensky, right? Look at where his origins and all that other stuff. So clearly that's not the case. But this is how the Russians view it, and so long as the West minimizes it and doesn't condemn their affiliation with these fringe groups, these ultra-nationalistic groups, who have every intent of replaying the aspirations of past dictators that we were supposed to, I guess we defeated them in 1945, but then this situation is going to get really, really out of control. I cannot emphasize that enough. I mean, today is one of those days, you know, every other day I look at this and I say, okay, maybe I'm just, this is hyperbole. You know, there's nothing to worry about here. The situation will resolve itself. There's the red line, there's the back channels. They're going to work this out. Not today. This situation is fucked, okay? And I never drop an F-bomb on this channel, but that's exactly what this is. This situation is getting out of hand. Look at all this recon activity you have in the Black Sea. In addition to just your run-of-the-mill recon activity, and I wasn't aware that they flew Typhoon Eurofighters this far into the Black Sea. Like, look how close they are to Crimea. These are fighter jets. This is a no-fly zone. I don't have flight radar up right now, but pretty much the whole Black Sea, with the exception of like the southernmost part, is a no-fly zone. They're flying Euro Typhoon fighters alongside recon planes. So what they're doing is, right now, they're sizing up, you know, the Russian defenses in Crimea. Okay, and this is, I'm not sure, you know, Eurotype, who knows who's flying that, probably Romania or some NATO representative. United Kingdom is the Boeing RC-135W rivet joint plane. They're getting that close, maybe to see what the Russians are going to tolerate. They had their transponders on this time. They probably do that as a way to try to minimize the risk of an escalation. But one of these days, one of these planes is going to get shot down, and there's going to be a dogfight between Russian fighters and NATO fighter jets because they're getting just way too close. I mean, they're still technically in international waters, but this still is a no-fly zone for a reason. The plane or the drone that was brought down, I believe it was brought down around 60 miles off the coast of Crimea. So they're not as close as they were then, but that they're sending these escorts out right now with all of this other reconnaissance activity. We have Navy U-2S patrols, we have Global Hawks RQ-4B, we have NATO Joint Air Force Phoenix RQ-4D patrols, we have British Air Force, you know, the French, everybody's, you know, waiting for something to go down right now. Now, earlier today, I don't know much about this situation, but traffic was halted on the Crimean Bridge And something was being attempted today because there was a bunch of ships that got murked in the Black Sea, and they were Ukrainian ships. And there's video of it, Russian vessel attacked by Ukrainian ships, and apparently there was a bit of damage done to a warship, a Russian warship. And they basically took out these smaller boats, speed boats, I don't know, like smaller boats, and they claimed that they were trying to target the Turk Stream pipeline. Now, if you target that pipeline, if you blow that pipeline up, I imagine that Turkey is going to, if Erdogan gets reelected, then I think they're going to leave NATO. And if you have a Turkish-Russian alliance, Turkish-Russian, Iranian, Chinese alliance, then look out. Now, that's just something I said on a whim. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff that would have to happen before Turkey just left NATO and joined the Russians. I don't think it's going to happen like that overnight. But what you're going to see is, if that happens, the Turks aren't going to go for that, okay? Because the Russians have plans to ship more gas through Turkey. So the plans to build more pipelines are there. So if they have to, go back and fix ones that they already have, then I can imagine that Turkey is going to get pretty pissed off. And there's already rumors that Turkey was going to leave NATO for a variety of reasons. But that doesn't look good. Okay, so shit's going down. Anyways, there was smoke emanating from around the Crimean Bridge. Now, I don't have the video, but this isn't actually smoke from the bridge. They're saying that this was a fog generating machine or something to try to blind whatever ships or missile or radar, whatever, was trying to get a good bead on the Crimean Bridge. Now, you would think with satellites and, reconnaissance planes and all this stuff, and that you wouldn't need to do something like this. They said it was an exercise. Maybe it was. You just never know. But that is just, there's some weird stuff that's been going on. The grounds are being prepped. And this is Zelensky, apparently. And, he's been doing his Tour de France, as I call it. And he's been going all over the world and looking for money and resources and seeing who's on his side and who isn't. Many people had suspected, myself included, that maybe he was a little concerned about his well-being, because now you have the Ukrainian intelligence chief openly today, I'm talking about openly, explicitly stating that Putin is on the kill list. So you know that means that this guy is probably on a list, or 2 or 3 or 4. Now that might seem as obvious, but if you're somebody who's really kind of paying attention to this stuff, you would realize that if Russia really wanted to end this guy, they probably could have done it. I say probably. It's not as easy as I think we're led to believe in the movies, where, just a pinpoint precision missile strike, bam, it's done. Probably not, but I'm pretty sure that the Russian tentacles run deep enough that if they wanted to decapitate, they could. But they haven't yet. So the mystery continues as to what the hell is going on. Is this even in Ukraine? Who knows? I'm sure it is. But I'm just going to have to, by the law of probability would dictate that, yeah, he's probably in Ukraine, because typically he's done this before, right? So anyways, Russia's top spy finally grows a backbone and says the US and the UK can go to hell. Sergei Narishkin, and this was in response to some comments that NATO was making about Iran. So it wasn't even to do with the Ukrainian situation. But I mean, this is bewildering to me. This is Russian state media, or pro-Kremlin media, Russia Today. But this is no secret, okay? This is being reported on numerous mainstream websites. But we want to kill Putin. I mean, just to say that, where this is going to end, okay? You're talking about killing Putin, you're doing attacks with drones on the Kremlin, and you got Nazis on the border. Not a good look if you're trying to avoid World War III. And all I can say is, right now, there's a bit of a lull in preparedness. There's this, people, because I was talking with Praxis Prepper about this today, because most people get into prepping after shit hits the fan, like after there's a incident, people enter it in an anxious, panic state. And if you start something out of fear, chances are you're going to get burnt out and you're not going to continue. That's why people like myself, who are like preppers to the core and who just have this natural inclination to expect that, you know, the future is going to be very, very vulnerable, and that we need to prepare for it, we have more staying power with this because our end goal is self-reliance and enjoying the autonomy that comes with self-sufficiency and all that stuff, as opposed to getting really scared, going out and going into debt, and then getting upset because nothing happens and feeling as though all your efforts were in vain. Unfortunately, they're not going to be in vain because there's nobody steering the ship right now. This is total chaos. People need to realize this. This is uncharted territory. There is not some secret cabal that is going to put the brakes on at the very last minute. I regret to inform you. This is wars between nation states, between corporations and individuals. It's a conflict that's been raging since the beginning of time, and now we just have nuclear weapons to make the problem worse. But man, it's incredible, because what's going to happen is people are going to panic once again when the real high intensity conflict, all these weapons, when they all start getting used, unless we get to some real deal stalemate. At this point in time, I don't see how that happens. I think they're wanting to push this to the limit. They don't think that Russia is going to use nuclear weapons. And they're trying to mission creep. They're doing it trepidatiously. They're incrementally slow creeping into this conflict in the hopes that Russia will keep moving the red line to the point where they're vulnerable enough that maybe they can do some kind of decapitation strike. Either way, a nuke is going to fly. I just don't see how it couldn't at this point. I mean, the future has war written all over it. Even Warren Buffett was stumbling in his words the other day, and we talked about this a month ago when they divested from the TSMC company. He was making all kinds of excuses for why he divested from the biggest, chip manufacturer in the world, in spite of NVIDIA's wild earnings today, if you guys are paying attention to the stock market. But he was talking about how, I got to divest from TSMC because of seismic issues, and maybe Taiwan is going to suffer an earthquake or something like that, when the reality is everybody knows he's worried about the war breaking out there. And those chip manufacturing facilities being commandeered by the Chinese, being taken off of publicly traded markets and being put under the control of the CCP. And contrary to what a lot of people think, the Taiwan government has said, no, we're not going to burn our chip manufacturing facilities, or we're not going to allow the U.S. military to do that, because it was a U.S. congressperson who said, if China, tries to take Taiwan, we're going to burn all the chip manufacturing facilities in Taiwan. And Taiwan's like, wait a minute, what did you just say? You're going to burn our billion-dollar, trillion-dollar, the backbone of our economy? You're going to destroy that? I don't think so. Anyways, Germany's Taurus cruise missile could be next for Ukraine. You can't make this stuff up. There's Nazis on the Russian border, and the Germans are pretty much sending everything they can muster at this point. But they're not going to send fighter jets yet. That's where they draw the line, right? Oh man, we are so screwed. Poland confirms data on preparation by the West to foment a coup in Belarus. So again, Poland has said, and this is a former deputy minister of defense. So not a sitting minister of defense, but a former deputy minister of defense, and said this, that they need to prepare to undermine the Belarusian government. You do that, that's why Russia put nukes there. Okay, that's why Belarus is getting their borders ready. Guys, I'm telling you, I don't know when the shit's going to hit the fan here, but everything is just falling into place. I mean, look at these memes on Twitter. This is like, people think that there's a reality that this exists and Russia does not use nuclear weapons. This is one of the more tamer of memes that circulates on Twitter. And it's incredible to me, and I just don't know if these people are okay playing this game of chicken, or if they don't realize, or if they don't think the nukes will work, or if they think that the Russians are too incompetent to launch an ICBM? Like, what is it? Do they truly believe that they can get here without Russia using nuclear weapons? Do they truly believe that Russia is too scared to use nuclear weapons? They've explicitly stated on numerous occasions, and it's written in their nuclear doctrine, that any existential threat to Russia will be grounds for using nuclear weapons. So who is making these memes? 2027, Moscow is going to be overrun by six and broken up into 6 different countries. Do you think, I mean, help me understand this, please, because I just don't get it. These are being circulated by millions of people. These are the people steering the ship, not some secret group. I know a lot of you guys are hoping that a secret group is behind all this, but unfortunately, it's just chaos, man. It's entropy. So the American government continues to throw the Ukrainians under the bus in some weird way. Now they're saying that, oh yeah, it was probably you behind the Kremlin drone attack too. Yeah, they did Nord Stream, and they did the, they always come out like a few months later and say that. Why? Why not just keep up with the narrative that we don't know who did it? I mean, I'm sure they're going to say Russian Ukrainians or something, pro-Ukrainian Russians or whatever the hell it is. Yeah, Russia has a new nuclear submarine fleet that is going into operation soon with a lot of nuclear weapons. Did I talk about this again? Okay, we got to do our obligatory Zaluzhny hot take. So, commander of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, I'm 100% convinced that something's going on. Without a doubt, something's going on. Because, well, not only has this been confirmed by the Russian MSM. So you have your Russian fringe propaganda media, and then you have your Russian MSM, who still has to uphold some journalistic integrity, okay? They can't just say outright lies, even though there's many, like Ukrainska Pravda does that a lot, where they write something. I'm like, that's so far from reality. How can you maintain any sort of journalistic integrity? I understand they're trying to keep morale up, but anyways, so RT comes out today, and they say there's, front page, there's evidence to suggest that he was injured, and they go into the specifics. In fact, this was Sputnik. First aid was provided to Zaluzhny and Nikolaev in order to stop the bleeding. He had a cranial trepantation done. I believe this is when they have to, make a hole in your skull and go in and do some work. And the condition of the commander-in-chief is complicated by the presence of an underlying disease called type 2 diabetes. They said that he was injured in a Russian attack. I'm not sure if it was artillery or I think it was a cruise missile, in fact, near Kherson. And that he suffered an injury, and because of his type 2 diabetes, that has complicated the process. No mention of this whatsoever. The top Ukrainian military general effectively neutralized, and not one bit of coverage, while Nazis are getting ready to drive Leopard tanks over the Russian border. And I know they're a small fraction of the Ukrainian military, but I'm just trying to paint a picture here of how insane this world is right now. This is insane. Now, so I think one of his aides or something releases this photo today, and she claimed that, to show the date or something, like she claimed to show a picture of him, with him, to try to prove and debunk these claims. This is the only extent that the Ukrainian government has went to try to put these claims to bed. They easily could be resolved if he would just come out and, talk to a camera for a little bit about a current event. He did have a conversation with Mark Milley, I believe, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff the other day, but that was on the phone, and that was just something which he said he did on Telegram. So anyways, what they've discovered was this picture that she released today. They look back in the archives, and apparently on, was it May 2nd? She had this picture that she released on her, was it Instagram or Twitter? It was one of those two. So basically they're wearing the exact same thing. The image is inverted in this one, and apparently there's some other data in here that shows the actual date being April 27th, which would make sense, when she posted this image on May 2nd. This was likely taken on the same day, but she just posted it today. So anyway, something is going on, clearly. I mean, without a doubt. I would not be surprised if that story just kind of fades away and all of a sudden, you know, we learn that he's going to be replaced down the road somewhere. Or maybe he will make an appearance at some point and it is going to be limited. Or maybe the whole thing's just a bunch of BS. But it's not looking like it. I tell you guys, I'm not making a dedicated video about something if there's not some very, very strong evidence, be it as it may strong anecdotal evidence that there's something there. Where there's smoke, there is fire. As I talked about, China has launched a hypersonic missile to attack the U.S. Navy. This is a simulation drill that they did. But in these simulation drills, and this is on Eurasia Times, they determined that they were able to take out the entire U.S. fleet, which is to be expected. There's that old saying, you're a fool to fight a fort with a fleet or something like that. Like, you know, you can't, by virtue of the fact that you're on these boats, this flotilla, and you're limited to how many weapons you can carry, all the Chinese have to do to fight a fleet of U.S. warships is just continue over and over again to lob missiles at it. Eventually, even if the Americans have the best missile defense in the world, you can only carry so many defensive missiles on your aircraft carrier, okay, and your warships. But what they discovered was that more than that, there was a 90% success rate with their hypersonic missiles. Now, this is a simulation, okay? And I think their missiles are largely untested as far as we know, but Chinese are very secretive. So either way, I think it's abundantly clear that the United States would have no chance in hell of beating the Chinese at a war, you know, even for Taiwan. I can't see that happening. And the only way the United States could win a war against China is if it went nuclear. And then, of course, if it goes nuclear, then it goes nuclear everywhere. But Warren Buffett has still divested from TSMC, and that's the Oracle of Omaha, man. If I'm going to believe anybody, you know, in terms of their investments and their connections, I'm going to put my money on Buffett. And he's saying, I got to get the hell out of TSMC. Now, NVIDIA broke the bank with their earnings, and they do some business with TSMC, but is it that NVIDIA, this other chip manufacturer, whose stock went up like 25% after hours today, or 30%, something crazy, 50% probably by now, maybe their business isn't entirely dependent on TSMC, and maybe people are thinking, well, if TSMC is going to go down, somebody's got to pick up the slack. Right? So maybe some of these other chip companies are going to be the ones to pull up the slack if China does commandeer all of that, the Taiwanese industrial sector. We talked briefly about how they're installing malware, or they have installed malware for the longest time. This is something that I'm pretty sure all countries have at their disposal. They have malware that lies dormant on critical infrastructural systems. So if the war starts, when the hybrid war starts heating up, that's when they push those buttons. That's when they start wreaking havoc. You had that case in the United States, what was a couple of years ago, where the natural gas pipeline explosion was the Colonial Pipeline hack or something like that. Anyways, not looking good, guys. It is not looking good. Then you got the whole debt to GDP ratio nonsense. I don't know what to make of this, but everybody's saying it's going to be bad. Now, I got to bring people back to this graph right here, because we got to understand history. Remember how I started this conversation by saying there's an uncanny resemblance to World War II? That was World War II. That was at the height. That was 1945 when the war ended, okay? And then the debt to GDP ratio, which is what this is, you can't just look at GDP because, you know, inflation. So this controls for inflation. So this means that how much money do you owe as a proportion of what your income is as a nation, as the United States. That is when we were effectively poorest. Okay, we had the most amount of debt. And then we paid off all that debt. And I say we because Canada is, you know, basically tethered to the sinking ship that is the United States. And you had the dirty old 1970s, and this is when you couldn't walk around New York City without getting mugged in the middle of the day. And then things started getting a little bit better in the 90s because China, you know, we started outsourcing, and they started making us cheap crap that we didn't need. And we started buying a lot of stuff. We bought that cheap crap with money that we didn't have. And then here we are today, and then COVID, boom, and this is probably going to be much worse. We're at a record debt to GDP, and the war hasn't started yet. That's the insane thing. The war hasn't even started. So, are they going to crash the economy? Is what I'm like. You have Biden coming on and saying, hey, don't worry, it's all going to be all right, man. And he said the same thing about Afghanistan and many other things. I cannot believe those guys at all. It took them 100 days to come to the bargaining table for some weird reason. Is it because they knew that, is it just because they know at the very last minute they're going to be able to make a deal? Is the market overblowing this whole thing? And, you know, if they cross the June 1st deadline, is it really even going to be as big of a deal as some people say it is? Some people say it's going to be the end of the world. It's going to crash the market. Stock market's going down 50%. Gold is going sky high. Who knows? Who knows what to believe at this point? Things are going to have to get sorted out, because this has to get sorted out. And we got a big war coming with two global superpowers, okay? So how can I end this on a positive note? I know if you want to support this channel, because I'm pretty sure we're going to get the boot soon, one of these days. I should probably stop saying that, be a self-fulfilling prophecy. The best EDC pant, LA Police Gear Atlas SATS. I'll post a link in the description below. The pant I wear every day. The short, because it's summertime, we got the shorts in now, and I'm going to be doing a complete EDC breakdown. This is a complete EDC system. Okay, in order, if you get the shorts, you have to get the knife, the specific multi-tool, the specific flashlight, and everything else engineered for this EDC. I'm telling you guys right now, you will not regret it. You're going to be like, man, Nate was right again. Anyways, what else can I talk about? Leave you on a positive note. There was a guy who was paralyzed, and he had some sort of neurosurgery or something like that. Now he can walk. So, you know, we're making leaps. We're making leaps and bounds in terms of, neuroprosthetics and all the rest. But hey, you know, things are looking up. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I don't want you guys to prep out of fear and burn yourselves out. It's important to know that there are rewards at the end. Regardless, hopefully nothing bad happens, because man, if shit goes downhill, it's going to go downhill real fast. And you don't want that to happen. We don't want to be vindicated as preppers. I got to constantly remind myself of that, because there's times when, you know, things happen and I'm like, okay, I told you so, but it sucks. So you don't want to say I told you so, but if we never have to say I told you so, then I guess we're the hero that Gotham needed but didn't deserve, or something. Who knows? Die the hero, become the villain. Anyways, this video is going on way too long, and sorry for the sensationalist rant today, but people need to understand the seriousness of this situation. And it is escalating by the day, and the big critical powder keg moment is coming. And you need to be ready when it happens. Get ahead before the panic. Get your EDC. Get your emergency stockpile of meds from Jace Medical, link in the description. Get 10 bucks off with Canadian Prepper coupon code. Get your freeze-dried food. Just get your house in order, man. Get your finances in order. Talk to a financial consultant, because either way, if they raise the debt limit, then the dollar is going to continue to get weaker, you know, relative to everything else, relative to gold. And even if they do kick that can down the road, you know it's going to be a bloodbath in 2024, whether on the political circuit or not. And the civil unrest at home is just getting insane. That Twitter algorithm is going to lead to a civil war, I do believe. Sorry, I was supposed to end on a positive note. That's all I got for you. I'm going to shut up now. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.